Obviously, as you alluded to, the energy density of uranium is just unmatched compared to our other energy sources. And on top of that, it's carbon free, of course. And so we have the solution before us to our climate crisis, as we have said on numerous occasions. There is no path to significant decarbonization that does not involve nuclear. And as you correctly alluded, governments around the world are waking up to this fact. Look, if it really is about carbon emissions, and you want to maintain the lifestyle of your population, we are seeing a reconciliation with physics where governments admit that their opposition to nuclear was perhaps a bit foolish. And everywhere in the world, except for maybe Germany, at least the current ruling coalition of Germany, we are seeing a reversion to the scientific mean.
Think. Act. And prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Money Level Show, where we think, act, and prosper. This channel focuses on changing financial trajectories and building legacy, so I hope that you all enjoy the content today. I am your host, Daryl Thomas, and today we're going to be talking with Doomberg. Now, Doomberg is a green chicken that focuses on finance, economics, and politics. So behind the green chicken are former engineers that worked in the commodity sector that know their stuff. So today we're going to talk to Doomberg about commodities, and we're going to talk to Doomberg about politics and how is that going to affect this commodities bull market. So before we get into the interview, please look at this statistic here. It shows that over the lifetime of my channel, 91% of people that watch my content are not subscribed. This number is disheartening. So please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Don't be that guy or gal that consumes the free content and doesn't support the channel. All right. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. Just transitioning to nuclear. So I recently, like the power of nuclear and uranium, it just amazes me every time I learn something new. Recently, there was an article that I saw, and there's a graphic going around of like a gummy bear size of uranium produces the same amount of energy as I think it's three barrels of oil, 1 ton of coal, and 17,000 cubic feet, or however you say, for natural gas, which that just blows me away. And so it seems like this has to play a critical point in our future. I've seen some governmental shifts in terms of like sentiment, and I think that this may. I don't know if the anti-nuclear crowd is aware of like the government bills that are being passed and such like that. But where do you see this kind of going in terms of with the political landscape with uranium?
Obviously, as you alluded to, the energy density of uranium is just unmatched compared to our other energy sources. And on top of that, it's carbon free, of course. And so we have the solution before us to our climate crisis, as we have said on numerous occasions. There is no path to significant decarbonization that does not involve nuclear. And as you correctly alluded, governments around the world are waking up to this fact. Look, if it really is about carbon emissions and you want to maintain the lifestyle of your population, we are seeing a reconciliation with physics where governments admit that their opposition to nuclear was perhaps a bit foolish. And everywhere in the world, except for maybe Germany, at least the current ruling coalition of Germany, we are seeing a reversion to the scientific mean, as one might say, where Canada, Ontario, even the U.S., Joe Biden, were, their support for nuclear power. We're seeing small modular reactors being developed for industrial uses where you can make both electricity and steam. One of the things we wrote a piece called Gaining Steam, where people don't realize that the carbon emissions from creating industrial grade steam for use in heavy manufacturing actually is larger than the combined carbon emissions of all of our transportation and aviation sector. And yet, for all the focus on electric vehicles, nobody's talking about how do we offset the carbon emissions of just producing steam. And you can do that with the latest generation nuclear reactors, and we profiled some efforts in that regard in that piece. And so Japan, the United Arab Emirates, France needs to do a better job of running an existing fleet. But everywhere we look, we're seeing a realization that the solution to what ails us is plain. It's right there in front of us. It's a matter of political will and a bit of financing to get it done. And so we would be deeply bullish nuclear sentiment, which necessarily makes us somewhat bullish uranium, although that's a whole separate issue as to whether, the current price of uranium is really factoring in all of the risks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So there's been a lot of bulls on uranium. I'm a uranium bull. Everything I research confirms my bias, right? And so, are there any risks out there with uranium? I mean, obviously a nuclear disaster and such, but are there any risks that we should be aware of? I mean, so that even the people that are invested in this sector can, be aware of both sides of the coin. Hey everyone, sorry for the break in action, but I have to let you know that I am now an affiliate with Miles Franklin. Miles Franklin has been a bullion dealer for over 30 years, and they provide some of the highest quality service to their clients, as well as fair pricing on bullion products. So purchasing bullion through Miles Franklin not only stores wealth for yourself, but you're also supporting this channel to continue to provide free educational material for retail investors and those who may not be aware of many financial concepts that I discuss on this channel. So you can get started by sending an email to info@milesfranklin.com or calling 952-929-7006. Be sure to let them know that Daryl Thomas or the Money Level Show sent you, and I will receive credit for your service. I thank you all for considering this. Now let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, you mentioned a few. Of course, there is always sort of industrial accident risk in the sector, and the I think totally out of hand overreaction to such an event would need to be recognized as a risk to the trade for sure. Beyond that, there is a lot of sort of untapped supply waiting to come online if prices elevate, and the cure for high prices is high prices. And so as uranium, creeps well past its current, or the historical range of $30 to $50 a pound, you do have some potential new supply coming online that might be able to meet any excess demand. And commodities are pretty cyclical. On the flip side, the price of uranium could double from here and nobody would care, because the price of uranium is a tiny input into the price of electricity produced from nuclear energy. Unlike, say, diesel, for example, where we're heavily sensitively dependent on it. But at the same time, an additional risk is that there's a lot of people are in the trade, and the bullish narrative, the sentiment is decidedly one-sided if you just look at Twitter and so on. And so we don't try to time such markets. We would be long-term bullish the nuclear sector and probably long-term bullish uranium. I think, an equilibrium price of $100 to $120 a pound in the long term probably makes sense, and that it would induce the right amount of supply to meet the needs of a growing nuclear sector. But that's just, sticking our finger in the wind. It's not an investment recommendation or a price prediction.
Gotcha. I was watching a recent video at the World Nuclear Association, and it seems like many of the utility companies are asleep at the wheel in terms of the supply side of things. I mean, obviously, if there's extra supply out there, I know that some of the secondary market, which was like the decommissioning of the Russian warheads and such, like a lot of that has dwindled down. But you have had like companies like Sput and such come in and buy. So do you foresee like utility companies having to pay like, really high prices for the metal or for the energy at some point? Because it seems like some of them are asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, that's certainly the narrative. Again, that has been popularized on FinTwit and Uranium Twitter. Can't say that we're close enough to the industry to give you an intelligent assessment of that, Daryl. I would say that we would hesitate to assume that people who do this for a living are somehow naive and missing things that you and I are catching on Twitter. These people are professionals. They acquire uranium for a living, literally, the procurement teams at these power plants. And so I would hesitate to assume that the other side of the trade is somehow less informed than me, especially since they do it for a living and we just write about it once in a while. And so I again, that those types of narratives becoming popular would give us some pause and would probably cause us to ponder whether there might be more risk to the trade than those who are most bullish about it would project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that I was looking at was just like the amount of reactors that are being built and restarted, and how much of the metal those reactors need to fuel the fuel that they need to operate and such. Do you see like there being some type of squeeze with the amount of reactors that are being built right now? Hello, everyone. Sorry for the break in action, but I want to tell you about the link in my description below. This is to the New Orleans Investment Conference. This conference has been around for years and have brought many people out, such as Milton Friedman, Gerald Ford, Alan Greenspan, and Margaret Thatcher. This conference is put on by Brian Lundeen and his team. Brian is the CEO of Gold Newsletter. This year, they're going to have speakers such as Jim Rickards, George Gammon, Peter Schiff, Rick Rule, Danielle DiMartino Booth, Lynn Alden, and many others. Now, I encourage you to click the link in the description below. You can choose to attend the live event, which I will likely be at, as well as the event that is live streamed. You can support the channel by using my link below, so I encourage you to check that out. Now, let's get back to the interview.
You know, given the time it takes to take these reactors from design to construction to, critical operation, I find it difficult to believe that the market is mispricing the supply demand dynamics in the coming years. Now, look, the uranium market is not the most efficient. It's not nearly as well developed as the markets for oil or gas or coal, but at the same time, markets do a pretty good job of discounting the future. I think, again, if you pushed us, we would be mildly bullish, keeping a close eye on sentiment and a bit of frothiness for some temporary pullbacks.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So I wanted to also, just kind of chat about. So obviously we got an election coming up, and we addressed some of these dynamics in terms of what Biden's doing, and Biden's having to play both sides of the coin and such. I just feel like this next election is going to be a shit show. So I'm just trying to get your take on what are you expecting with this? Are you expecting any change, any optimism or anything?
We try not to be political, but to the extent that politics impacts the markets that we write about, namely energy, we have to be politically aware. We are bewildered by the slate of possible candidates that seem to be on offer in this election. I mean, between just the two of us, I would say that anybody looking at Joe Biden can't claim that the man's all there. Notwithstanding any of his political choices, it's very clear that and of course this is a bipartisan issue. We're ruled by these people that are like 100 years old. We have Mitch McConnell freezing up at press conferences, and Dianne Feinstein being wheeled out by her staff, not knowing where she is, and Joe Biden, clearly some signs of some potential degradation there. And I think it doesn't do anybody any good to deny these things. In our view, we would love nothing more than a four-way race between, let's just say, DeSantis and Gavin Newsom, with Joe Manchin running as an independent and Robert Kennedy Jr. running as an independent. Like, at least all four of those people can complete a sentence, and they have a pretty decent array of policy choices for voters to choose from. If we're stuck choosing between Trump and Biden again, I mean, come on. It can't be that in a country of 330 million people, these are the two best candidates we can come up with. Let's get the next generation in there. Let's have an honest debate about policies. Let's give the voters a real choice. And go from there. And frankly, I think the two-party system has overborne its welcome. I think we do need a bit more diversity of choice. And I think a few independent candidates in there that have a bit of youth and a bit of vigor and a bit of controversy and some some provocative policy proposals. Look, I think, for example, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s position on energy is insane. I think he is deeply ignorant on the topic, and I think dangerously so. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't have that out in the open and for us to discuss why that would be and let voters choose. If we're forced to choose between Biden and Trump again, I mean, heaven help us, I think we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's the importance of debate, like, so, if Robert Kennedy is oblivious to the energy sector, then, someone that can debate him on that, should be able to crush that argument. And I agree with you wholeheartly, especially the age. I think Biden's 80 years old now. Not saying that, anyone. I just watched the interview from Thomas Sowell, on Fox News, and he seems pretty sharp at 93 years old. But if you're comparing the two, right?
Look, it's time for us to turn over the reins of power to the younger generation. Look, there's just far fewer people over the age of 80 than there are under the age of 50. Right. And the decisions being made by the people over 80 that, look, the Speaker of the House, not Kevin McCarthy's a little younger, but like Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader of the House, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, these people have been around forever. And the decisions they're making now, frankly, they're not going to be alive to deal with the consequences of what they're doing right now. I think it's time, to everything there is a season. It is time to turn over the reins of power to the next generation. Because they're the ones who are going to have to live with the consequences of what we're doing today with these unparalleled deficits and endless wars and all these lies that we're telling people about Social Security and Medicaid, that these entitlements are going to be there when the people need it. Like, these are really hard, generationally impactful decisions that need to be made in the next decade. And that's not clear to me that people who aren't going to be here should be the ones making those decisions. Let's be honest. I mean, it's absurd on its face that these are the political leaders that we have to choose between. It's literally crazy.
Yeah. That's. I mean, the entitlements. Like, I've been telling almost every guest on my show and my audience, I don't think Social Security going to be there when I get there. And I had a interview with Neil Howe, the author of The Fourth Turning, is here, and co-author of The Fourth Turning, and we had to talk about that. And so it was really good. I mean, even his projections, and by 2030, we'll experience some type of crisis that have to reset everything. And so I'm wondering if the next 4 years is going to be more pain, depending on the candidates we get. And then, at some point we're going to get to this point where enough stupid decisions are going to make where we're going to have to revert to mean scientifically, and people are going to be outraged. So that's what I kind of wonder what's going to happen.
It's a scary book to read for sure. Neil's great. I've read both books, the first one and now the new one that he just put out. And you're exactly right. Like, I mean, at some point we can only lie to ourselves for so long, and these fundamental truisms of the world need to be confronted. And the more we kick the can down the road, the harder the ultimate reconciliation will be. And so while we're optimistic long term, boy, in the short and medium term, after reading Neil's book, it's hard to be super optimistic.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I think we should leave on that doom note. So
I was going to say, the best part of all this, Daryl, is that at least it's bullish for Doomberg. We're not going to have any shortage of things to write about in the coming weeks, months, and years ahead.
Yes, that is true. Well, appreciate you for coming on. Where can people find more about you?
Doomberg.substack.com. We are full-time on Substack, both publishing 6 to 8 times a month and active on their notes platform, which is kind of their Twitter equivalent. Daryl, always great to talk to you. Congrats again on all your success, and I really appreciated the opportunity to join you today and talk about these important issues.
All right, thank you. Take care.